Hey guys, my name is David and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing my September 2022 wrap up. September was kind of a mixed bag, well probably the most mixed bag I've had of any month during this year, as I read a bunch of great stuff, but I also DNF'd a bunch of great stuff as well. But that's how it goes, I suppose. Sometimes you're not really in the mood for a book, even though you may like it, even though you are enjoying it. It's just not the thing for you to read at that moment in time. So I've made a little list of all the books I have read this month, or last month rather. So let's just go through the things I DNF'd or did not finish. There are 4 books on here, and one of them I have no intention to ever pick up again, and the other 3 I do intend to pick up again. I was just not in the mood to read at the time. So the first one I DNF'd was The Faceless Ones by Derek Lanley. This is book 3 in his Skullduggery Pleasant series. I have really enjoyed the first 2 Skullduggery books, as they are extremely fun and very quick to get through. But what I found is that they kind of like straddle that line between action and character development. Because they are written for such a younger audience, I feel that Derek felt that he had to have all his books action packed to hold the reader's attention span. Not saying that I am not going to continue reading the Skullduggery books. I am going to still be doing it. Sorry guys, it's a bit windy today. It's blowing my hair around. But in all seriousness, I am fully intending to read all the Skullduggery Pleasant books. I was just not in the mood to read the Faceless Ones at that moment in time. Next, which is probably the one I'm most ashamed to say that I DNF'd, was Assassin by Sean Hudson. I am a massive fan of Sean Hudson, even to an extent which I, on a daily basis, or as often as I can, I'm always checking on eBay to see if I can find any interesting or good deals on his books. But again, this one, I didn't hate it, I liked it, and it was really scary and creepy. But I was just not in the mood at the time to read it, so I just thought, okay, I'll put it down, but I am fully intending to get back to Assassin, as well as reading everything else that Sean has ever written. Next is the one that I have no intention to ever pick up again. But this next one was based on a West End stage show, or a theatre play, which I went to and I watched a couple of times, maybe 2, maybe 3 times. And I really enjoyed the play, and I even bought this book when I first went to see it, and it was just in my room. And I tried to read it, and I couldn't get into it, and that was Wicked. I loved the stage play. I really enjoy it. I enjoy all the songs. I enjoy, obviously, The Wizard of Oz and The Return to Oz, and I am going to be reading all the Oz books as well. But Wicked, I just couldn't get into it. The characters I couldn't connect with. The story I couldn't really care less about. And I did really want to give this book a try, and I really wanted to give it a chance. But I just didn't really want to push through it and to force myself to read it. So I thought, okay, I'll stop reading it, and maybe someone else will find some enjoyment out of it. And the last book, which was probably the biggest disappointment for me and most hardest for me to DNF, and that was The Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. This is the last book in his First Law trilogy, and the last book I need to read of that whole trilogy. It's been a while. I read it once before, but I DNF'd it because I was doing a buddy read at the time, which I also DNF'd, funny enough. But the reason why I DNF'd the second time for The Last Argument of Kings was because it was a massive book, and I couldn't have that much of a big commitment to read it at that time. So what I thought is, okay, I'll put the book down, but in November I'm only going to start off with only reading one book, and that is that book, as I want to read it as I know I'm going to enjoy it. I know that it's going to be in my top 10 of my favourite books of this year. But because it's a massive book, it needs a massive commitment, and that's what I'm going to do. It's not something that I'm going to force myself to read. It's something that I want to read, but I've got to have that time commitment for it. Again, sorry guys about the wind. Hopefully you can hear me. It's the downside about filming outside. You know, the weather. You know. But let's get to the things that I actually read in September. Pretty much all these have got videos for, so if I do have any videos, they will be up here somewhere, and I will have links down below. But the first one is Code Red by R. St. Clair, or Regina St. Clair, or Regina's Haunted Library. This is a vampire book set in a, well, partially set in a asylum, and it is fantastic. I really enjoyed it. It's the first book I've ever read by Regina, and I really enjoyed it. So I give it a 5 stars out of 5. Does it deserve 5 stars? Not really, but I had a lot of fun reading it, and I highly recommend it. Next I read was a poetry collection called Immortalised in Ink by N.P. Hunt. Kind of hard to talk about a poetry book, but I'm always looking to read more poetry. And this one, even though I wasn't sure completely what everything was about, I enjoyed it and I had a lot of fun reading it. So I give it a 4 stars out of 5. Next I read was Volume 1 of The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. This was a lot of fun, as I'm a fan of the series, which I still need to finish season 1. But I read the first volume and I enjoyed it. If you're wondering, it covers up to about episode 5 or 6. I also cannot wait to read other books in that whole series. Next I read was The Graveyard Book, which was the graphic novel, which I read entirely in the graveyard, which was this graveyard. And if you have read the novel, then you've more or less read the book. I would start off with the novel first, but the graphic novel was extremely fun, but it's more of a companion piece to the novel itself. But as I said, there's not much that compares the two, but I had a lot of fun reading it and getting back into that whole world of the graveyard and with these characters. So I rated that a 4 stars out of 5. Next I read was a point horror book, as I bought a bunch of them on eBay in one massive lot. And the reason why I picked this one is because of Regina's Haunted Library, that she was doing the Vamptember thing, you know, Vampire in September put together. And that was The Return of the Vampire. Haven't done a video about this one, not really intending to, as it's obviously a YA book, which, you know, is all fair and good. But this is about a kind of a Carrie type of figure, or young girl, which isn't popular, isn't attractive, and she wants to be more than what she is. And yeah, even though it wasn't a traditional vampire, which, you know, sucking the blood and, you know, all that stuff which are typical of vampires, it was an interesting book. It wasn't the best, but it was okay. My god, it's windy today. So yeah, anyway, I rated that book a 2.5 stars out of 5. Apologies, I can't remember who wrote it, but it will be up here, so you will be able to see what the author's name was. Next was The Nightmare Hour by R.L. Stine. This is a short story collection which covers 10 stories, but it was a lot of fun. It really was, and it was, I mean, it wasn't the best, but R.L. Stine, you know, first author that I ever read, so, you know, it was kind of nostalgic, and it was really comfortable and really easy to read and very different. So I rated that one a 3.5 stars out of 5. Next I read was Faces in the Window by Oliver C. Seneca. This is about a couple of teachers that go to teach at this Catholic school, which turns out to be haunted by these deceased children that are haunting the whole premises and causing a curse that requires all the faculty, no matter what their job is, to stay at the school. They can go outside on vacation or whatever, but they have to retain their position at the school. And if they do decide to leave, then they will mysteriously die and get killed. It was a author request book, and it's really heartwarming that and different that you have all these authors that go underneath the radar and all these small authors, and they're kind of overshadowed by all the big players. And this one, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I connected with all the characters. Yes, there were flaws in it like any other book, but it was fun, it was enjoyable, it was creepy, and it's more of a character based story than a monster story, but I highly recommend it. The next thing and the last thing that I read in September was The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Probably said it completely wrong, but that's the best I can do. This was recommended to me by Marissa Bailey, and she did a whole video on it, which I will have up here, and we had a conversation about it down below in the comments, and she highly recommended it to me, so I thought, okay, why not? So I read it. Fantastic, more of a coming of age story about a young man that's been kicked out of school, and he has to try to, you know, find his way again. Best way I can describe it. It was surprisingly good. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I'm going to be doing a video on this today, so I'll be able to talk about it in more detail. But long and the short of it, it was a massive surprise. It was a book that I thought I was going to read and, yeah, freely give away after I was done with it, but you know what, I think I'll hold on to this one. It was a big surprise. So guys, that has been my wrap up for September. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've heard me throughout this wind that we've been having. There's loads of grey clouds in the sky, so I don't know if there's a storm on its way or whatever. Yeah, typical British horrible weather. But hopefully you've heard me, hopefully you've had some enjoyment out of this. There's always been that stigma with me doing wrap-up videos, as I'm like, well, if you follow my videos, then you know what I've read, and does anyone even care what I read for the previous month? But yeah, I've done it, hopefully you've enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in my next video.